lose in your fantasy league. We got that blue and orange blood that you bleed. The most loyal fans there ever could be. We are that mile high Broncos country.
The Denver Broncos select
Orange Weekly, fans, brews, and Broncos news. What's up, Broncos country? Welcome to another edition of Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS. My name's Kev Dan. I got the great, all-knowing, the most wise David that I know. David, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Oh, doing spectacular. Bye week's over, Kev Dan. Bye week's over, and it's time to talk about a Broncos game again this Sunday. So it's feeling good.
I don't know about you guys, David, or everyone else watching. This bye week seemed to last a little longer than what I remember because we were so excited about the final push of the season, guys. And we're going to break all of that down here for you in a little bit, mostly focus on the Colts game, but doing some retrospective look as well in terms of how did we get here? And so really quickly, guys, make sure if you want to get more in-depth conversation of like just looking back on the season as a whole so far, check out last night's episode of the show, or the Season in Review show. Adam and I did an hour-long breakdown of everything we've seen this season and kind of looking back to how we got here. So, guys, post your comments, post your questions. I want to hear from you guys what you have to say. We're going to have a great conversation tonight. I'm ready to start actually saying the word playoffs. I don't know about you, David, but I think looking at where we're at, it's not so much maybe if sorta. It's this should happen as long as the Broncos take care of business. And this is an amazing thing to be talking about in mid-December, man.
For sure. And specifically, it should happen if the Broncos take care of business on Sunday. Because if you beat the Colts, you're still 2 games up, at least on everybody else who has a tiebreaker over you. And you are now, the Colts are done. I think your playoff chances are somewhere in the 90 percentile if you do that. And Gary, shout out to everybody on Team Puffball. Thank you so much for joining as always. It's really a fascinating place to be in, because if you beat you win this game, you're at 9 wins, you've got a winning season. But Sean Payton talked about it this week. He's aiming a little higher than that. The whole team is right now, and it seems like they're super locked in. So man, it's exciting. Like you said, if they take care of business against the Colts, they're in such a good position. And that's the thing. I have faith for the first time in such a long time that the team, when they should take care of business, no, I'm all the way back. No, this is the other side of that coin. Maybe I'm believing too much, but now I am fully bought into the idea that when this team should take care of business, they're going to, and that includes this weekend.
Well, part of that, David, and I'll kind of get your take on this in terms of what we've seen throughout the season. This isn't just a team that, you say good teams beat the teams they're supposed to. And we've seen that from the Broncos pretty much all season. But the thing that really gets me, and Jeremy, I see your question, man. I'm just going to say, I don't want to talk about that far in the future yet. Let's get a playoff spot first, and then we can really look at seeing who we're going to match up against. But for me, when I'm looking at, if we play the Bills or if we play Kansas City or if we play the Steelers, like whoever we end up playing in the first round, this team has such grit and determination. You see it not just in games where we fall behind 10 plus points and they either almost fight their way back or they do fight their way back, but you're talking about plays like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20. In recent years, David, and I still feel it. It's like a habit I have to break. As soon as we're in that position, I just kind of resign myself like, there we go. Like that's the drive killer. But they've shown time and time again that they're out there to get the job done. And so when I'm looking at the last 4 games here, starting with the Colts, who, yeah, I get it. They're fighting for a playoff spot too, but they have the much harder battle, on their side than we do. I think this is the team that is going to approach this with the right mindset, is going to take care of business at home, and is going to continually show that, hey, we're not a fluke. We deserve to be here. We deserve to be a playoff team. And that's the complete opposite of what everyone was saying at the beginning of the year. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's so weird, right? It's so weird to even conceptualize it because, like you said, you're so used to being let down by this team over and over again. You feel like in the biggest moments they come up the smallest, and I think they're able to move past that because they've got such youth at key positions now. It's there's guys that are part of this team who have never been in that, and I think that really helps. I think that makes a big difference, and I think that they are getting a ton of buy-in from the coaching staff. I think they are getting players to really believe in the system and be like, listen, this is what we're doing. And if you want to be here, this means working for it. And if you don't want to be here, that's fine, but you won't be here. And I think they're all buying in. I think they're all pushing in the same direction right now. And that's what's really leading to it more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Solid direction from the top. I'm going to say the culture word again. The culture is just dynamically shifted, especially over the last year. And we're just seeing the fruit of this, really grow and become fruitful much quicker than we expected. Now, I mean, to be honest, David, this is kind of like what I expected next year, So to me, in a lot of ways, we're a year ahead of schedule from where I expected us to be.
Yeah. Right, for sure. And I think that's true. Obviously the analysts at the beginning of the year didn't have this Broncos team going anywhere. But you're right. Even I think if among fans, it was realistic to think you would be competing for a playoff spot next year as like a good scenario, not like best case scenario, obviously, but like as a top 50% outcome, you're competing for a playoff spot next year. Well, now you're in the thick of it this year. And we'll talk about my belief that the Broncos can win out a little bit later, but we'll get to that. But yeah, it's so great to, it's a testament to the great coaching they have. And it's a testament to how these players are really just playing for each other right now.
Exactly. Keith says, hopefully we solve the cornerback 2 problem. Jeremy, no Riley Moss versus Colts. Oh my God. Now, here's what I'm hearing, and this is kind of also relating back to what Jeff Legwold said last week. Was that last week? Talking about this situation. Yeah. We're not expecting Moss to be back until the Bengals game. And that's fine with me. I think we can handle the Colts and the Chargers both without him. But for sure, we would need him for the Bengals game and pushing in the playoffs. So I am not in any rush to get this guy back on the field if he is not 110% ready to go, dude.
For sure. I don't want that MCL sprain. You call it a sprain. It's still a torn MCL. It's just a question of how much you tear it at that point. And so I am definitely in favor of keeping him on the pine until he can really be healthy. But yeah, it's definitely a scenario where you don't want to go see Levi Wallace playing meaningful snaps, hopefully, right? Like, no. But that would be, this Colts array of weapons is not like the greatest in the NFL, but they're kind of also not like, they're not, just because they're not household names doesn't mean they're not good players. And that's kind of, I think that's really across the board for them. So it would be nice to see them kind of learn from that mistake against Cleveland and not try to trot out Levi Wallace to play meaningful snaps again. Because Anthony Richardson is kind of like a poor man's Jameis Winston. I think he's got that variability, right? Where he can make the most electric throw you've ever seen in your life or make the most boneheaded turnover. But what really sets the two of them apart, I think, is Richardson's ability to run and the dynamic of that he brings to the game. So you're going to have players that are disciplined in coverage, which means that your front 4 guys and your front 7 guys can keep their eyes on the quarterback. So yeah, hopefully we get a little bit more Chris Abrams drain and a little bit less Levi Wallace this game. I'll say that about CB2.
Are you, let's say we see Wallace go out there at the start of the game. Are you immediately going to have questions or, kind of like what's going on? Like, we only saw Chris Abrams drain get replaced on like the last drive. And to me, it kind of signaled like, man, I really, really don't want to make this move, but there's nothing else to try here, and so is that enough time to kind of make that move? Now, of course, we had the bye week there, but it's like kind of like, where do we put Wallace now? Or is he kind of just like, man, you're special teams and hopefully we don't see you on the field otherwise?
Well, right. I mean, that if they do run out Wallace as the starter, shoot.
You're good.
Am I back?
Yep, you're back.
Okay, sorry. Okay, if they do run out Wallace again there, I guess it'll just be because they feel like he had something, they were able to correct something over the bye week, right? They were able to see something on the tape that made them go, we can fix this schematically. He's still our best down-to-down option, I guess. To Paul's question here, I have no idea what's going on with Damari Mathis. I guess maybe they don't have really the kind of faith in him that they need to have to get him going again.
David,
I can't say.
You're breaking up there, but
he's not in there.
I'm gonna let your computer have a minute to catch up to itself.
But yeah, I connection here, guys. I think we.
Yeah, so I'll let your computer catch up to itself. You're right. I mean, for me, Mathis, the weird thing with this was Mathis was the starter at the beginning of the season. And for me, I was looking at this saying, wow, you look at how well Moss is doing. And for me, it was like, how are they going to deal with, who's going to get the start, right? Moss or Mathis? But since Moss has come back, there's been no Mathis. And then you see Wallace out there. And so it almost makes me wonder if that injury is still maybe not 100, giving him some concern, or he's just missing out on a step or something. But there's something there. You don't go from starter to like just completely vanishing without there being a reason. And the only thing I can put in there really is that, there was that injury. So that's going to be definitely a huge, huge issue for the Broncos, because, if I'm the Colts, if I'm any of the teams as we move forward in the rest of the season here, I'm looking at that tape from the Browns game, and I'm saying this is what they did to put up huge numbers against the Broncos, not just in terms of points, but in terms of yardage as well. And this Wallace guy, he is the weak link on defense right now. He is the guy that we need to target. So if you see him out there, to me, that you just know who the offense is going to throw to, and it's going to be in the direction of Levi Wallace, it's going to be in the direction of Levi Wallace, and that concerns me. So, hey, are we keeping, Mathis healthy for maybe the playoffs if we need him later on, or whatever the case is? But it is very concerning to see what he's doing. David, go and give me a thumbs up when you're ready to come back on. But let's see what else we got going on here, guys. Paul says AR is baby Cam Newton. Look, for me, if you guys forget what happened, Richardson tapped out of a game earlier on in the season. He basically just said, I'm done. I'm done. And they do that in college. That's a college thing, but that's not something you do in the NFL. If you're the quarterback, you don't just tap out for a play or two like wide receivers do, running backs do, all these other players do. They swap out, they get a couple plays in, and then they'll come back when they're ready to go again. The quarterback does not do that. So for the quarterback to tap out without there being an injury, without there being any reason other than I need a break, coach, that is horrendous. And Paul, exactly. AR is baby Cam Newton. That's exactly how I see him. And it's like, since then, has he really done anything to show that, he's, just an above average quarterback, anything like that? So let me just ask this of you, David, like when it comes to Richardson, like What are you seeing from him? What do you expect from him? Is he somebody who's maybe going to fizzle out in a couple of years, or is he just having a rough time getting going in his first year?
It's really hard to say with Anthony Richardson. For me, the jury is still out. There's this weird segment of like football Twitter nerds who are like just really obsessed with defending Anthony Richardson and like we babying the flaws. It's kind of like Broncos country with Bo Nix a little bit, but it's just because they see this freakish athlete who can run the way that he does with this arm, this cannon for an arm that can do so many like just wacky things, like throw 65 air yard touchdowns perfectly in stride. But he's also the anti-Bo Nix a little bit in that he started like, I don't know, a season and a half's worth of college games or something like that. And he was just super raw coming out. Then he gets hurt, I don't know, 4 whatever games into his rookie year. So he has to sit most of the rookie year. It's a lot, right? And so I don't know what kind of trajectory he's on. I think Shane Steichen is a really good offensive coach, but right now he's very much still figuring out how to play professional football at all. And when those things click, when the gears mesh for him, you see the kind of special stuff, but that's really, that's my analysis of where he's at. And you saw, you guys were talking about him tapping out in that game. I think that's another extension of that. Like he's still trying to figure out how to be a professional and do that kind of thing.
Spot on, man. And it's going to be interesting to see how he developed. You're right. I mean, I didn't think about the difference between him and Bo Nix in that regard, right? Bo Nix, super experienced, tons of playing time in college. I think he has the all-time record for number of starts in college football, which is fantastic, right? And then Anthony Richardson. So how long is it going to take for him to kind of catch up and get in the flow of things?
Right.
So that's going to be interesting to watch as the years go by. Right now, it's, he's kind of more of a liability than anything because Jeremy, you're right, predict he's going to get 2 picks, off of Richardson there. And I think that's totally doable. Like what you're, and it's kind of like what, Brown's quarterback, is like, you don't know what you're going to get with him. Is he going to be a mess or is he going to be Peyton Manning-esque? Yeah,
right.
We just got a Peyton Manning-esque type of day out of him on last Monday. But other games, he just totally falls apart. Similar situation here in terms of just the decisions. Sometimes they're spot on. Other times you're like, dude, what? Where are you? What are you looking at? Hey, do you even know what color jersey you're wearing today, man? Oh, man, I love it.
Yeah.
So we can talk more about him as we go through this, but I definitely want to make sure we have time for other stuff. First off, Paul, liked and subscribed. Thank you very much, Paul, for joining the crew here. For everyone else, make sure you are following us, subscribing to our stuff. This is a great time to hop on our train, guys. Yeah, we've been around for 9 years, but things are really picking up here. Not only did we have an audience reach of over 10,000 people alone yesterday, but over the last 90 days, our reach has been 185,000 people. So you are getting in on the bedrock, the beginning of this thing really taking off. And so, you guys are all OGs. You've been sticking with us for a long time. For the new people like Paul, you guys are awesome as well. We are so glad to have you all, and we do this for you guys. So make sure you keep the comments coming and all the questions as well. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about this, man. One of the big concerns that I think that I just hear rumbling throughout all of Broncos country. Everyone's been talking about it over the bye week. We need to get a run game, a consistent run game going. Do you think that over the course of the bye week, there's been any change or any new philosophy that we're going to enter at the end of the season with to try and get that really going on a consistent level?
No, probably not. And I don't know. I like that because the thing is about the run game is I don't think you can change a ton of stuff remarkably without elevating Tyler Batty from the practice squad, which I don't know that they're going to do. And B, because just put Estime in and for the carries that you were going to give to Javonte. I think that's really the only 2 big changes you can make. I don't think you can really change up what you're trying to do with Jaleel McLaughlin because he has such a particular skill set for you.
Yeah.
So those are really the biggest changes you could make to me. Maybe we will see Estime get a little bit more going there. But I don't know, man. It feels like to me with the personnel they have, it might just be what it is. You know, I get the impulse to say we got to bring up these new players. We got to try something else. But, you know, I think Batty, I can't remember how, Bidet. Yeah, thank you. I forgot. It's been a while. But, you know, I think Bidet, the one who's most likely to take snaps from in the role he's most likely to assume in this offense is Jaleel's role, especially since you don't know if you can trust him in pass protection. Which means you're taking out the only part of your run game that's kind of working right now. And then as far as Parham goes, like, I get he's giant, but there's a reason he hasn't been elevated from the practice squad all year when you are running the football the way you are. I think Adam Troutman has been a really good run blocking better at run blocking tight end than he's gotten better as the year has gone along. He's better than he was last year, I think. But, you know, I think they just kind of prefer what they get in two tight end sets with Troutman and Kroll right now, and having Atkins in there is kind of the guy who can play fullback too. I get it because Parham's this freak, right? But it's like, you know, they just probably haven't seen enough from him to be like, all right, we trust you in this offense to do all the things we want our tight ends to do, especially since our offense is now, you know, scoring 25 points a game, 30 points a game. It feels like you're kind of just meddling with things in the name of meddling instead of dropping better players in with a real chance of success at that point.
Right. You know, my concern is I get that we want to try and find success late in the season, but believe it or not, our run game could be worse.
Could be worse.
We don't have the worst. It's not like we're going into this like with the bare bottom worst run game in the league, right? And just saying like, wow, you know, Bo Nix and not taking anything away from Bo Nix, who's done an incredible job, right? But it's not like we're in panic mode. And I think some people are just so desperate, and I get it. I feel it too, Broncos country. We're so desperate to not just make the playoffs, but we see what the potential is in this team this year and know that they could go a lot further, even win one, you know, just they could win a playoff game and maybe even more. And that's, you know, so we want to get the weak areas fixed now.
Yeah.
And you just can't really do that over a single bye week. You just really can't, especially this late in the season.
Yeah, you're doing what you're doing at this point, really.
Exactly. So like what Philip says here, Philip, how you doing, man? Estime is the answer. Maybe you do something like that where you have Estime kind of get the start and see if he's the one that can get things going really consistently early on and leveraging McLaughlin and his skill set. And then, you know, you know, it is what it is at that point.
I mean, Javante's just been so ineffective over the last month.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I feel for the guy as much as anybody with the devastating knee injury and trying to come back from that. But I mean, it's tough to, and you know, it's a lot easier to make this point when Jared's not on the show. It's tough to justify continuing to give him carries when they so often just lead your offense to being 2 or 3 yards behind the sticks when they're finished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the problem there with Javonte is, and I hear what Jared's saying, I do, but when I hear people talk about what they see on the tape, there's always a conversation of he takes one step too many before he makes his decision. You know, it seems like he's either just not comfortable with making those cuts yet, or he's just not seeing the field. And I'll go back to this. I don't believe that he just can't see the field, because in his rookie year, he saw the field just fine. He had no problem making those very quick decisions, you know, and plowing through those guys, right? But now it seems like there's just something in him that's causing him to hesitate for just that half a second. And then that half a second is all you need for the defense to collapse that hole, see where the runner's going, and make the stop. And it's like, you know, until he gets past that, I just don't see what Javonte is going to do anything more than what he has been. And that's where I'm looking to some of these younger guys like Estime, who is a beast in himself, but I don't think we've really given him a solid chance to say, hey, this is your game. Go out there and show us what you can do. So you have that balance act of, do we try to do that? But we're also still trying to, solidify our playoff spot. Yeah. And, there's so many things that could go on. Is it worth risking trying to throw a wrench into everything right now and gamble if it's going to be better or not? Because again, it could be worse. And if the run game does go to hell, you're looking at this last 4 games could actually be a lot tougher than what we're looking at right now.
Well, and this is a decent point from Paul, is that Javonte is your best pass blocking back right now. And when he's in there, at least it forces the defense to do a little bit more guessing as to what you're going to do out of that personnel. So you at least you do have the semblance of the run threat from him when he's in there, but he can also pass block. So it's not like, and we saw them try to deploy Jaleel McLaughlin a little bit more in pass blocking against the Browns. And sometimes he held up okay, and other times it was pretty clear how he's a smaller guy. But it really has been the case with him in his career here that when he's on the field, he's not going to be pass blocking. He's going to be getting the ball more often than not.
Right.
So with Javonte, you've got that multiplicity, and I think Jeff talked about it last week, right? There's just these scenarios when you're trying to close out a season where you're like, do I give the rookie who's already fumbled twice these meaningful carries with the game on the line, or these meaningful snaps with the game on the line, or do I put the guy in there who I know can at least do this one thing that I need him to do in this situation?
Right. It's like, hopefully we get enough yards out of it, but I can trust that he's not going to fumble the ball, which is a whole lot worse.
Right.
You can pick up 20 yards on a carry and then fumble. That that pisses me off, right? I don't care how great of a run it was. You fumbled the damn ball. If you get 2 yards, but you don't fumble, okay, well, at least it's something, right? So it's, and plus, in kind of what you're alluding to, with Javonte being a good pass blocker, you can't signal to the other team what you're going to do. If you do nothing but pass blocking with Javonte and he's the one out there, the defense is going to know, oh, this is a passing play. And if you do nothing but running with Estime, then they're going to know that as well. So you have to balance it to keep them on their toes while at the same time trying to feed the guy with the hot hand to keep him going. So it's a really tough balancing act that they're trying to do, man.
Yeah.
And I think they've been doing it as well as they could be up until this point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the way it is. And that's another kind of the overall arching discussion is that, you're in you're heading into week 14 now. Your team kind of is what it is at this point for the season. Like there's not, we talked about it a little bit earlier. There's not a ton of foundational things, right? The foundational changes that you can make at this point in the season, whether you're trying to get a playoff team or push in or not. That's all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this comment, Keith. Melvin Gordon. Yeah, guys, do you remember that Melvin Gordon was on the Broncos for a while? That seems like forever ago. Jeremy, I like this one. There ain't no Bam Bam CJ Anderson. I miss Bam Bam. That was a good time as well, guys. So look, as we look into next season and stuff like that, the off season, if the running game is one of your really only big concerns on offense, that's a really good thing. Like you can address that in the off season. It's not like we need an O-line and we definitely need more wide receivers and we definitely need a running back. And man, is a quarterback the answer or not? And you're just like, kind of like what we've been in the last 8 years. We finally have a very solid offense for the most part, and we just need to make some tweaks. But again, this is expected. We're in a rebuild, and we're just doing incredibly, incredibly well for a team that's in their first year of a rebuild. You just don't really ever see this happen.
Right.
So it's great.
Teams with $80 million dead cap hits or whatever it is. Yeah. There was some names in that Broncos running back room over the years that there was a Marion Barber phase going back a little bit further. I don't know if you guys remember that. But Kev Dan, it's halftime.
It is halftime, guys.
Yeah.
And you know what I like to do at a halftime? Refill my glass with a nice cold glass of Breckenridge Distillery's championship blend. Guys, if you want to feel like the Broncos do after winning a game, just drink some of this. It's delicious. Great stuff, guys. Make sure you check it out. If you don't like the whiskey, don't worry. They have vodka as well. Broncos blend vodka. So check out Breckenridge Distillery and buy some of that, guys. Great stuff. Don't forget about all of our other Bourbon Broncos and OBS content with the Monday night post-game podcast. Tuesday night, every night, this show, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. It's going to be consistent like it has been for the last 9 years. So if you're sick of us, sorry, we're going to be here. We also got the post-game and the pre-game podcast. Make sure you check that out. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher. Game day. If you're waiting for the game, you're just super impatient for the game, we got you covered. 1 hour before kickoff, we got our live tailgate talk show where we're going to break down all the last-minute news, the injury report, all that stuff so we can get the best look at the game as we possibly can. And then halftime, we're going to be live as well for the live halftime hash show, which we've been doing for a long time as well. And if you're like, halftime, why would you do a show during halftime? Think about it, guys. I know what you do at halftime. You pick up your phone and you start checking stuff, right? You're seeing your Facebooking or Instagram or whatever, and you're seeing all the Broncos posts. Well, forget that. Don't listen to the TV announcers. They're boring. Come on over here with us, and we're going to be breaking down the first half action, talking with you guys and hearing you guys and your thoughts of everything that's been, what's going on in the game up to that point. So make sure you check that out. It's a very quick and very fun show. Guys, we got you covered. Tons of other content on our channels, videos throughout the week and whatnot. So make sure you're subscribing and you're liking. Again, this show is just really taking off, and the Broncos are really taking off. So you're going to want to tell your friends and family about us. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. That helps us out and helps the algorithm out for us as well. Guys, hopefully you finished up your Uncrustables, which is, again, Broncos. I think that's what the magic is, David. The Broncos lead the league in Uncrustable eating, and look at what they're doing on the field, man. I'm just saying there's a correlation here. Okay.
There's a correlation. We haven't proven a causation yet. So
that's the other part of that.
Yeah.
Correlation does not equal causation.
No,
okay. Sorry.
Sure doesn't. Hang in there, Kev. That's all right. Now, guys, we are going to have plenty of good stuff to talk about on this week's edition of the pregame podcast for this Colts Broncos tilt. But we can get into it a little bit now, Kev Dan.
Let's do it.
And
give the people a hint, a little taste.
That's it.
So
the chatter, the talk on the interwebs, if you will, is that this is the most important Broncos game since Super Bowl 50, and I hate it. I hate it. I hate it because
why do you hate it?
Because I don't care if it's true, Kevin. Like, I don't care right now. For me, the biggest question of the season has already been answered, and unless we see a giant regression from Bo Nix in the last 4 games of the season, I'm already satisfied with the way the season has gone. I am already satisfied that the Broncos have a guy they can go into next season with some stuff to teach, for sure, some stuff to impart to their young quarterback still, and plenty of room to grow in this offense, but with complete faith that the coaching staff is going to be able to take him to another level going into next year. And that's what I come out of this with, even if we don't win another game once again, as long as we don't see a shocking regression from Bo Nix, right? So I don't like, sure, I want the Broncos to win, to make the playoffs. I want them to beat the Colts. I think they are going to beat the Colts. But let's tamp down on the most important game since Super Bowl 50 talk. Like, let's just, we don't have to get into a projection of where this franchise is going in the next 5 years to just be able to live in this moment and enjoy it, guys.
Yeah. That's a great point, David. Like, the hype is here. I get it. And Broncos country, we're very spoiled. We've had Peyton Manning, we've had John Elway, we've had 3 Super Bowls, we've been to many other Super Bowls. Broncos country is spoiled. And it seems like, while we should have a very high expectation for our quarterback and for our team in general, we have to look at the bigger picture, right? Just because we make it into the playoffs doesn't mean, Super Bowl or bust, right? That doesn't mean like, this team sucks because they didn't make it to the Super Bowl. This is the first year of a rebuild, and we're just doing a lot of things that the vast majority of people did not expect us to do. You're talking about not just winning more than 5 games, you're talking about double-digit wins and a playoff berth. That alone is icing on the cake to the main question we wanted answered this year, and that was, is Bo Nix our guy? So everything past that, and we've got that answer is yes. Everything past that is just icing on the cake. So enjoy it, because even if you look back to last year and that 5-game win streak and how amazing that was, and not trying to take anything away from that experience and what that looked like, but we won 5 games in a row. And I think that only got us to 1 or 2 games above 500. Like, it wasn't even that much. Right. That's how bad of a hole we had dug ourselves into. Now you look at this year, we started 0-2, which teams since 1990 only have had an 11.5% chance of making it to the postseason when they start 0-2. So we started in the hole with everything stacked against us, and we've dug ourselves out in a very strong fashion. And so this team can become more and can become better over time, but we have to get rid of that dead cap hit, hanging over our head. We have to get more experience, which is going to take time. But making it to the playoffs and even winning a playoff game either this year or next year, that's what's going to draw those free agents to you. They're going to want to come to your organization because they know they have a real good chance, and not just making a good payday, but winning some championships as well. So we have to temper our expectations. I get why we're excited, but let's not freak out if something goes wrong. This has already been an incredible journey. But at this point, a lot of things are going to have to go wrong for the Broncos to not get in the playoffs. And it's just a matter of, how does the team handle this pressure? Because essentially now, David, the way I see it, we're in playoff mode the way it sits right now.
Well, that's it. And Gary says the most important game is the next one. And this is how the players are thinking about it, too. None of the players were here during Super Bowl 50. None of the players were here in, the 2 or 3 years after. They are just trying to win games, because the players who are here and have been here for a while just remember losing a lot. It's what Garrett Bowles talked about. And so they are just thinking about winning the next game, maybe, getting to their postseason for sure, but just taking care of the Colts and then moving on to the next week after that. They're not thinking about the most important game for Broncos country in 8 years or whatever. It's not like that for them. No. They're just trying to go out there and do their jobs. And yeah, I completely agree with Jeremy here. I don't expect them to hit the Super Bowl either, even if they win a playoff game this year. I think there's still a definite ceiling on where the Broncos can go this year, guys. But sure, it would be a lot cooler if we did. And looking ahead a little bit, we're talking about the playoffs. I think we can get the Chiefs. I don't want the Chiefs to rest their starters in Week 18. I've been very public about this, and I'll continue to be. Bring me Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens, I don't like the Ravens matchup. I don't think we match up well against them. That's just it. The Bills, I think that could be a more interesting. The Broncos went into Buffalo and beat the Bills last year with Russell Wilson. I think that could be a more interesting game than people think it is. However, that being said, I would like the Chiefs to slip out of that number 1 seed and into the number 2 spot. So if the Broncos are the 7th seed, they end up facing Kansas City in that first round. Spotty, joining the show from his honeymoon. Always a warrior. Thank you so much. We love you.
I'm glad he knows where his priorities lie.
Absolutely.
This makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, Spotty. So.
and we'll get into draft talk for sure, but Spotty makes such a good point that, like, if the Broncos get like 2 to 3 starters out of this next draft, I think they're in a really, really good position to compete for a lot of years to come. I think that you've already seen enough contributions from this draft class to make you really encouraged. I think if they go after a tight end, a running back, and maybe like a young interior defensive lineman, maybe a young interior offensive lineman, or a young tackle, because either McGlinchey or Bowles are going to have contract years coming up in the next couple of years. So draft a young player at those positions high. But I also feel like we're for the first time in years, we're at a place where the draft can just unfold in front of us, right? We can. Sean Payton's known for trading up in drafts for players he really likes, but we can do that this year if we really want to. because we've got the ammunition. It's so nice to have all your picks back, everything like that. Let's get back to the Colts game, guys, because I love looking ahead, but I don't want to do what the players are doing. Thank you so much for joining, Spotty. We love you so much. But let's do what the players are doing and focus on Indy. The biggest threat, I think, when you're talking about the Indianapolis Colts on offense, and I think this played out against the Patriots, who they were down against for a good majority of the game, but when they got the Colts, that is, got into the red zone, they just didn't have an answer for what Anthony Richardson can do with his legs specifically. And that's a big deal for this Broncos team, who is not the biggest, I think, who doesn't have the biggest size at linebacker, and whose defensive linemen like to kind of shoot gaps and get upfield, as opposed to really try and hold up against bigger offensive linemen like Quentin Nelson at the point of attack. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they match up with, I think, Richardson's like 240 or something like that. And so how they match up with his running ability in the red zone could be a really key factor in this game.
It's interesting you point that out, because to me, the thing that immediately jumps to my mind, David, is the Broncos tend to be, and not always, but tend to be a bend but don't break. So if you're talking about, man, there's a matchup concern in the red zone, that's like the one thing that keeps us in these games. Like, we'll let these teams sometimes work their way down the field, but we tighten up once they get to the 30, the 20, the 15, whatever, and we stop them and hold them to a field goal, pretty consistently. So if some team is able to crack through that, that could spell, I don't want to say disaster, but that could make it a whole lot more tougher for the offense to go out there and play their game well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that that's the case. I hope that carries over in this game. And I think you'll get enough high variance plays from Anthony Richardson that you will get opportunities for turnovers. I don't know if they're going to be able to get the ball out of his hands, on sacks and plays like that, just because he's so huge. But he's also a really young player, and he might be a little careless with the football or overconfident at times. So there may be opportunities there. It is going to be key, I think, to have Zach Allen back healthy for this game. And I think he says, now, this is how players talk, so take this with a grain of salt, of course, but he's like, well, my foot feels as good as it has since week 1 after the bye week, right after getting the chance to rest. So great. Let's find out. Let's see if that's actually true. At the very least, you do want to see a little bit more consistent pressure, because it feels like that's fallen off at times over the past 2 games. I think the Browns' offensive line is a little bit better than they got credit for this season. I don't think the Colts have an amazing offensive line, but they do still have Quentin Nelson, who is one of the best year in, year out players at his position in the NFL. So yeah, it's going to be a question of being really disciplined, making sure you're not opening up huge rush lanes for Richardson or giving him time to kind of scramble around and make just a clown play on your secondary. Because that, it doesn't matter how good your guys are in coverage. If you leave them out there for 7 seconds, somebody's going to get away from them.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup on the Broncos for that side of the ball. And we haven't even talked about Jonathan Taylor yet, Kev.
Now, before we talk about Jonathan Taylor, I do want to make one other announcement I did forget at halftime, but I want to make sure everybody is aware. This is the time of year where we start talking about our fan appreciation episode. If you guys don't know what that is, every year, the last 3 or 4 years, we do one show specifically at the end of the season that just highlights you guys, our fans. And it's nothing but a bunch of giveaways. We'll have special guests. And trivia, fun stuff, just talking about the Broncos, hanging out, looking back on the season, all that good stuff. And like I said, once again, tons of Broncos giveaways for you guys. And this year, brought to you by Centennial State Insurance Agency, we're going to be giving away a Broncos jersey of your choice. Do you want a white jersey? Do you want orange? Do you want blue? Do you want a player? Do you want it customized? Don't care. If you win, you get to pick what jersey you get. So as we get closer to the end of the season, we'll be making announcements to when that show is. Normally late January is when the show is. So make sure you check the words out for that. and join in and have a chance to win some awesome Broncos swag. Yeah, guys, it's going to be fun. So make sure you tune in, and also make sure you're watching us really closely over the next couple of weeks, because we've already decided the day it's announced that the Broncos have clinched a playoff spot, we are going to go live that night to talk about it. Okay. We're not going to wait to Tuesday. We're not going to wait till whatever. We're not wait a week. Broncos clinch it. We're going live. We'll try and give you guys as much heads up as possible, so it's not like, oh, I missed something, but you guys are going to want to keep a close eye out. And just know that as soon as we clinch it, we are going to go live that night and have an all-out celebration, basically, and talking about what that's going to look like. So that's coming down the pike really quickly. Okay, oh yeah, here you go.
Quick point about that, Kev. I won a date last year. Still haven't set that up. Still haven't arranged that. I'm not sure if we're waiting for some finances to align or what the deal is there. This is a red flag though, Kev. Like, first date. It's been almost a year now. Still can't get that together. Yeah, Spotty, good point here. We have to shut down the run and the QB sneak. You got to pay attention to Josh Downs. We were talking a little bit about these Colts receivers as being better than you might expect them to be based on just not hearing their names a whole lot over the course of the season. Need to have big games from your inside cover guys on in-breaking routes. Sean, I love the enthusiasm. I don't believe mathematically the Broncos can clinch a playoff spot on Sunday at all. So, it would have been nice if the Jets could have taken care of business against the Dolphins this last week, but that do be the way that go sometimes. So yeah, when you're counting on Aaron,
after that.
Yeah, I think it might even be the week after that. I mean, that's the thing. Getting into the weeds on this a little bit, if the Dolphins win out and the Broncos end the season with 10 wins, if they both end the season with 10 wins, the Dolphins win the tiebreaker because they'll have more conference wins, I believe, at that point. So I mean, those are the stakes right now. Now, the Dolphins also have games against the Texans and the 49ers left to play this year, as well as the Jets in Cleveland, against Cleveland and against the Jets. And we both know how they do in cold weather games. But that's the thing. If they do win out and the Broncos only win 10 games, the Dolphins take that, even if they, So you'd like to see the Broncos win 11 games. I'll teased it a little bit, and we can talk about it some more if you want, Kev. I think they can win out. Guys, having to count on Aaron Rodgers for anything, like, I'm not going to get into my Enigma rant with the Netflix show. Man, you only name a show like that if you really want people to think you're an interesting person. Anyway, counting on him to do anything to help you on a football field this year, it's not going to be in your best interest. Just don't do it. Don't set yourself up for that heartbreak. Now, let's talk a little bit about Jonathan Taylor, Kev, before we switch to the Colts defense. A player who, was really in that conversation of best running back in the NFL, had all the, that pay controversy of whether he was going to get another contract with the Colts, had some injury stuff go on, but has been one of the most effective week in and week out running backs in the NFL this year. We've seen the Broncos really take care of business against most backs, with the sole exception that I can think of really being Derrick Henry. So, what do you like or not like about that matchup against Taylor?
I mean, we've seen throughout the season, with the exception of Derrick Henry, I mean, how many games, guys, have we gone into, hearing about, oh, they have this big name running back? I could go back to the games and list them all, right? And we talk about, this is a concern. This is a concern. If they get this run game going, this can be a concern. And time and time and time again, we do a really good job of holding them to nothing. And look at Derrick Henry. The first half of that game, he was not getting going. He did not rack up those yards until the second half. So even Derrick Henry, we had limited success against. They had to adjust what they were doing to get him going. So, it's like, for me as a Broncos fan, I should be sitting here saying, yes, I recognize the threat, and the Broncos in general, they need to be sitting here saying, I recognize the threat, but we shouldn't be threatened by it. We shouldn't be too worried and say, oh, well, they're going to get the run game going and we're not going to be able to stop it. The fact of the matter is, we should have no problem stopping the run game like we have been doing all year.
Yeah. Well, and with that, Kev, I think we can switch over a little bit. And the thing about this Colts defense is that I don't know that much about this Colts defense, right? And I do know that means that they're not playing in the top half of the league this year. They don't have names like Denzel Ward on that defense or Myles Garrett. They've got Laiatu Latu, their first round pass rusher from this year, who has been good in spots. And that's going to be a challenge for Garrett Bowles, I think, to handle. But other than that, I don't see a defense loaded with playmakers like we saw against Cleveland. And we were able to put up 27 on Cleveland on a night where Bo Nix had like just above 50% passing. So
for him.
No, it was an interesting night for him.
It's an interesting night for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about the interceptions if you want. The thing about the interceptions is I don't think they were like the first one is just Denzel Ward's a ridiculous cornerback who made a ridiculous play, and hats off to him for doing it. Like the ball wasn't placed egregiously. In fact, it was placed really low and kind of not outside, but really low. So to make it harder for a cornerback to reach over the wide receiver's body and swat it away. And then you get the freakish bounce on a play like that. It's 1,000,000 to 1 shot that the ball batted that way bounces into the air instead of into the ground. Anyway, I think this is a good opportunity for Bo Nix to have a bounce back game as far as playing a defense that doesn't have as many superstars. And I think he'll be able to execute the offense the way he wants.
No, totally agree. I saw David Spotty's comment here. 3 players with over 100 tackles on the Colts defense. So, look, they're going to hit hard. They're going to hit you. You know, they're not just going to say, "Oh, we're not going to make the playoffs, so whatever." Like they're going to be coming for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not a defense that's going to just lie down and take it. But yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways to interpret a defense that has a lot of tackles. You can have a defense that has a lot of tackles because they're really effective, or you can have a defense that has a lot of tackles because they're always on the field, and because they can't get off the field. So yeah, there it is. So
you said that.
Yeah, and reading up on how the Colts have been playing, just with the stats and how they rank, it seems to me a little bit closer to the latter. But yeah, guys, make sure you log in this week to the pregame podcast. We're going to break down all of the key matchups for you there in depth.
It's going to be great.
Don't miss it.
Sorry, I cut you off with the Bo Nix talk there. Dude, there was a lot. I don't say a lot. There were a couple people who were very outspoken against Bo Nix after the Browns game. And I get that his stats weren't great. Like you said, 50%-ish on his passes. But you look at some of the things he did do, and they're just dimes, So if you what constitutes a bounce back game for you this week for Bo Nix? Like, what are you looking for? Like, where would you say this makes me happy?
More consistent footwork. And, that's something, again, we talked about with Jeff Legwold. And guys, if you didn't catch that show, make sure you go back last week and watch it. Because, man, it's such a great time. Every time he comes on, we always learn so much. He really talked about that as being something that there's not a ton you can do to coach that up in the season. You're just trying to install a game plan and get on to the next week, and then install the next game plan and get on to the next week. So that's something they're going to focus on a little bit more in the off season, but it is still something they can work on. And, it's something that I think you've seen Bo Nix get better at incrementally as the season has gone along. So I just want to see him, because we have seen him more consistently set his feet and throw really good balls than he was earlier in the season, but he needs to be doing that. There's some plays that he can get away with his arm talent, but there are fewer than he thought I think there would be available to him when he got to the league. And I think we've seen him adjust to that really well, but he really is going to be a quarterback who relies on setting his feet and doing everything mechanically really well to make these good plays down the field on a consistent basis. So that's, Kev, to your point, what I'd really like to see to call this a quote unquote bounce back game for him is just set your feet really well on these plays. Don't get phantom pressure and bail out from clean pockets earlier than you should, and just go.
Just go.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Bo Nix has been smart with the football. Yes, there was that one interception, but if you look back before that, there were 3 games before that where he hadn't thrown an interception, which just, again, it is remarkable for us to watch a Broncos quarterback and not be worried about him constantly throwing interceptions and or taking sacks. So, you know, the Colts are going to be looking at that Browns game and seeing what they can take from that to try to get Bo off his game, to try and have him get a repeat performance from that Browns game. But Bo Nix and Sean Payton and the way they've been going this year, while, you know, Bo Nix isn't focused on really learning and drastically improving, it's just more like, what can I fix from this last game? And you better bet that over the last 2 weeks, Bo Nix has been watching the hell out of that film. And I mean, I would like to think that with Peyton Manning right here in Denver, good old Bo Nix has him on speed dial and saying, hey, buddy, you want to come over for a beer? Point some things out to me, you know, and stuff like that. I don't know if that actually happens, but you do see how active Peyton Manning is with the organization and everything. But either way, Bo Nix, I think, is just, you're going to see a little bit more improvement from him. I think he's going to fix the things that he did wrong in the last week's game. And when you're looking at the stats of what Sean said, you know, the 26 pass defense that the Colts have, this is a game that Bo Nix can go out there and just, he should be able to shine.
Yeah. And yes, Jeremy, I do, because that's part of the Sean Payton offense. The Sean Payton offense, there's a ton of screens in it. These shorter passes, to these shallow areas of the field, setting up these deep shots on play action and rollouts and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what the offense wants to do, and we've seen Bo Nix execute it enough times that clearly Sean Payton is comfortable calling it. So yes, I do expect him to try and push the ball downfield, not just against the Colts, but against every defense going forward. Yeah. Thanks, Nick, for joining us. Absolutely. Good evening to you. I think statistically, Sean, I think you're dead on as far as the touchdowns for sure. Yeah, 2 touchdown game from Bo. No interceptions. Yeah, no turnovers this game. Let's cut that out this game, because even on the second interception last week, Kev, it really, we talked about it with Jeff again. It was a 2-man route, and Bo made the better of the 2 throws that he could have made if he was going to throw to the player. Now, the real answer is, okay, you throw the ball out of bounds on that one and you take it. But I also can see his thought process, at least, because I think it was Franklin on the other side of that ball. And I can see him just kind of going, look, that's my teammate down there from college. He's still trying to build his confidence. We're still trying to connect on one of these deep balls that we've been trying to throw all season. And it's just like, I think we have one, and the rest of them have just been all these near misses. So I'm going to throw this up there. And if, worst comes to worst, it's an arm punt, right? It comes down at like the 35-yard line for the Browns. You flip the field with it at least, but I can see at least his thought process of, I'm going to try this. And I don't necessarily fault him for that. Keep making plays, keep throwing the ball down the field, make them respect the fact that you can do it. Yeah.
And that's a good message to be sending to the other teams down the stretch here, especially if you're looking at a playoff game. We're a team that we're going to be aggressive. And if you're not careful, we're going to make you pay for it. You've got to watch that. So we're not going to shy away from taking those chances, even early on in the game. We're not going to reserve that for, oh crap, we're down by 2 scores and, it's in the 4th quarter and we got to play catch up here. It's we're going to test you early and often. Gary, I like this. David, I think we do need to institute a rule here. Whenever someone mentions team puffball, I think you just got to go a little, just a little dangle right there.
Give it a squeeze.
A little rub. Give it a squeeze. Yeah.
Give it a squeeze.
Maybe that's the good luck charm for the Broncos this year. I don't know.
I'm in favor of it. Absolutely. Give it a squeeze, guys.
Well, guys, we're getting close to the end of the show here. Before we do some closing thoughts, we'll wrap up with just some reminders. Again, check out all of our other content. Make sure you listen to that pregame podcast. Those are going to get more. I mean, they're already interesting. They're going to get more and more interesting as we get closer to the playoffs. David, do you believe you might, because it's not official yet, you might very well be doing a pregame playoff game podcast this year.
Yes.
For the first time ever, guys. This is stuff we've never done at Bourbon Broncos No BS because we've never been to the playoffs. So everything you see postseason from us this year is the first time ever. So I'm going to throw this out there. If there's anything you guys would like to see us do for a potential playoff game or games, let us know because we can incorporate that into years down the line as well, if not this year. So again, this show is about you guys, the fans. We want to make it as enjoyable as possible for you guys. Send us your feedback, send us your ideas, and we'd love to try and incorporate some of that. Make sure you comment, subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. Tell your friends and family about us as we get ready for the Broncos playoff push. If you're going to the last couple if you're going to the last couple Broncos games at home, starting with this one with the Colts, get loud. Just get loud. If you lose your voice for a day or two, don't worry, mine will be gone as well. So we can all suffer in misery, but with, we win, as long as we win, it's okay. So just be loud, be proud. This is a great time to be a Broncos fan and just absolutely enjoy it like we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
David, with that, Jimmy, if I had a field pass, I would offer it up to you, but I need to get one for myself first. Yeah, Sean, glad you guys are here. It makes it all worthwhile, and share. So with that, David, let's do some closing thoughts. Over to you, good sir.
Okay, closing thoughts. Guys, I think it's time to think about this Broncos team and look at the schedule and see this team as a team that can win all of these games. I get that it's
champions.
No, because you have to win the Super Bowl to be champions. But yeah, right. Try that Breckenridge Bourbon Broncos blend, guys. That's the blend of champions, if nothing else. Now, back to my thoughts. It just is time to think about this team as a team that is reliably going to play good football week in and week out. I don't know if that's going to necessarily mean they win every one of their last games, but it's going to give them a shot to be in every single one of these games. I think that they are just demonstrably, as far as the level they're playing at, as much as they've improved since they saw the Chargers the last time, I think they're on the same level there. I think that they can go out there and put up a really interesting Browns-like game against the Bengals, maybe, and that's going to be super entertaining. And I've been saying it 100 times. I'll say it again. They can beat the Chiefs at home. They can beat the Chiefs at home, no matter who the Chiefs are playing, starters or backups. They can beat the Chiefs. I see this as a different Broncos team. I really do. I'm no longer dead inside. I've come all the way back, and I'm so excited to see where we can go in the future.
This is great. You're right. I mean, the expectation is that the Broncos win. And if they don't win, that they put up a real good fight. We've been on so many of these losing sides of just, one possession games the last few years. And we've talked about, man, if we just, could win a couple more of those, like what would it look like? And it's like this, but better, because we're not just winning by a single score. In a lot of these we're winning by multiple scores. Look, the Chiefs aren't even doing that. The Chiefs all of their games are like 1-score games. We are putting opponents away. Yeah, we have some close games, but you look at what these guys are doing. They're fighting until the end of the game. They don't give up. You go back to that first Raiders game when we were down by 10. They didn't give up. They freaking fought through that whole thing and made the Raiders pay, and then we end up winning by 10. So this team has the foundation of something really special. And while, like you said, David, we're probably getting close to reaching the ceiling of this year's team, you have another good offseason, another good draft. That's just going to make that ceiling go so much higher for the next season.
Yeah,
and this is what you can expect year in, year out. Now, I will have to say that's a little sad because ticket prices are probably going to start skyrocketing. But, is what it is when you have a team that's doing as well as the Broncos. So, Look, this is great, guys. Clay, you popped in here. Thank you for joining. Anthony again, Jimmy, Nick, everybody else who's been here, Sean. with Mitchell Fabroni and his fandom there of that guy. Man, I want to get his autograph just to give to you, man. If that ever happens, you're going to be on the list to get that. Yeah, we're going to we in the playoffs. We need a squeaker in the puffball. I like that. Clayton, Bo Nix, baby, been saying it all year. I know I believe. I think, David, you believe, and so does Broncos country. Paula, thank you very much for watching. Guys, it is time for us to wrap this up. We're going to head on out, but make sure you watch all of our other videos this week. Check out the pregame podcast later this week and get ready for all the game day awesomeness we're going to have for you guys on Sunday. So, David, thank you very much, man. Appreciate everything and all your insights. But I have nothing left to say other than to end it, as we always do, on a very strong Go
Broncos.
Take care, guys.
Do what I like, yeah, I do what I like, yeah, I do what I like. Sip and go, sip is right, and I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show, in the zone, here I go, in the zone.